What's going on, guys? Junior's Fishing Company. Today we are doing a Marabou walleye pattern jig. This is a 6 cents, 3/8 ounce, just a swim jig, all black with some pretty cool eyes on there. I don't know what you'd call those eyes, but I've already dressed a lot of this jig up just to save some time. This is 1/4 inch chocolate body tubing. And the Marabou I put up here right by the head, I just want it to be a little bit bulkier to add some shoulders there. I've got a really big rattle on here. The only two rattles that I have are really, really small and then pretty big. So I thought, well, maybe I'll put the bigger one on. I don't know how long this is gonna last. I glued it down pretty good though, but we'll see how long it lasts. So again, walleye pattern. I've got black Marabou with some, this is like an amber, and I'm gonna put 2 of those on, and then I'm gonna try and fit another all black, and then up by the head is gonna be all black. The first thing I'm gonna put down is actually gonna be blended. This is SF, just, pretty standard flash in black. I think it's just midnight. And then I've got Nightmare Musky Flies, Flash and Fiber. This is Goldilocks, and this is just a perfect color in my opinion for a walleye pattern. It might be kind of hard to tell in the camera, but it matches this really, really well. You're not really going to be able to see it because I'm just going to put just a couple little strips right here. The tail is actually going to be, this is just Strung Rooster, but I really like the pattern of this feather. It's got little black strips, and on the outside it's kind of white. Some of them are more white than others, but it's kind of like a really light brown. I got these feathers from, I think it's called Moonlight Feathers. It's more of like a party hat feather website. I think they have a little fishing section on there, but they've got great colors of feathers. They're a little spendy, but I mean, you get a ton. They're not crazy expensive, but Moonlight Feathers, I think I got these from there a while back. I've had these for a while, but I just really like the coloring. And then I'm going to put one little white feather that's going to be probably my longest one, just to add a little bit more white, just because I try to always add that little tail accent on a walleye pattern. So I'm going to get my weed guards out of there, and I'm going to come down here, and I've got just a couple stacks. I blended this SF and Nightmare Musky Flies synthetic together, and this is a great, when I blended these together, I really like it. I would actually almost do like a dubbing loop with just that stuff. So I'm going to avoid putting anything, this is the bottom of my jig, I'm going to avoid putting anything here because it's just going to push it up like that. So I'm just going to put it on the sides and on what is going to be the top of my bait, because again, I don't want, maybe I'll just put 2 because that Marabou is going to take up some room. Maybe I'll just do 2. I haven't used Marabou yet this spring, so hopefully all goes well. I'm just going to put one more down, then I can maybe get it pushed onto the bottom. This is just to add a little bit of body to taper into a really thin tail. Again, Marabou really likes to just super matte down. I was always disappointed when I would buy a big musky Marabou inline for $30, and then when it gets wet it gets super thin. but it moves great. I love a Marabou jig. So I've got the synthetic down, and now I'm just going to start working my feathers in. I'm going to try and get up a little bit farther. I'm just going to put these feathers on the sides. I'm not going to put any on the bottom because my hook's there, and I'm not going to put any on top. If I did put any on top, I would actually put it into the rattle. And maybe that's what I'll do with this one, because I want this one to be the longest. So I'm just going to go up into my rattle. I'm not going to put anything over the rattle until my Marabou goes over it. So I want that feather's not very straight. It was kind of bent, but it's just a perfect size. So I'll put that in there, and then I can come back down here, just trim off that little stem. So I've got 6 of these little feathers already pretty much ready to go. I've got a couple extras just in case, because these are super thin. But again, you can see that black and kind of that really light brown. It looks really good. Get it a little farther back. I'm just going to alternate every other, because I don't want to put like 4 on one side and then see that that's enough. Worked up. I don't know how much space this is going to take up, but I just want to make sure that it doesn't get in the way too much. You always want your bodkin kind of ready to go, because it will. It's kind of like wrapping chenille almost. You just want to work it back. You don't want those fibers getting too caught up. And these are kind of just touching wraps. You can do it as much as you want. Spread them out, put them right on top of each other. It's totally up to you. I want a lot of marabou on this jig though. That's why I'm going with the 3/8 ounce. Because the more marabou, it'll sink slower, but with a heavier jig, I'll be able to cast it better. As opposed to, you know, you see some marabou jigs. I have some, you know, 16th ounce ones or whatever, 1/8 ounce too, but I'm going to be primarily, this won't even really be touching the bottom. I'm just going to be casting this. So now I'm kind of there. My stems are getting really thick. So I'm going to tie these off really good because I don't want them to slip. This is 210 black, by the way. I think it's Flymaster Plus. Get those off, and sometimes all you have is the stem left, because I plucked off all the bottom hairs that get all matty and stuff. Make sure that those are down. These stems aren't too sharp, so you really don't have to worry too much. Just get that flattened out a little bit. That's a thick stem. So then I'll work my way back down. Now I'll have plenty of room. I'm going to go right up to where this black thread is. So I've still got some room in there to hopefully get two more in there. And I'm just going to take one of my hair clips, because these can get in the way. So it kind of, that little brown, I'm kind of optimistic about it. So I've got my next two. This is all black. And I'll get these tied in there, nice and tight, so they don't want to, if anything, I'll break the stem before these slip. Get my hackle pliers again, and I've just got a little glass of water sitting here. I think it makes it a little bit easier to wet them just a little bit. Obviously they're going to get wet when you fish with them, but just for wrapping purposes, it's just a little bit easier to wrap them how you want it. I should maybe have my bobbin cradle. Get my bodkin again. Again, I just don't want to trap any of these hairs down too much, so when I come right up here, they kind of get matted a little bit. So you just want to make sure, because if you don't, half your feather fibers are just flat, getting pushed down by the next wrap. I think I'm pretty much out. Get these wet. They get in your way. Push that down. I don't want to lose too many wrap in here either. Get that down. I like to use super thin stems, but sometimes the thicker stems. I'm not a big blood quill guy. If you don't know marabou, there's usually two types. There's blood quill and standard, Blood quill, the stems on them, I mean, I've got a bunch of blood quill and I'll strip the fibers off. So like if this was blood quill, I would just take it like this and I would just strip them off and use these. Because wrapping blood quill, it's like sometimes those stems just get ridiculous. So I think I'll have plenty of room to do another one, but I'm kind of building up a lot of bulk here. I just want to get one more of those ambers down before I just do the rest black. So I'll do amber on top. I just want to get these as lined up as I can. And when the amber's on top, it's going to show more. So now I'm going to get all this back. It just doesn't have to look super nice because all this is going to be covered anyway by that tubing. So I want to make sure I can still push that back. If I go too far up here, it's going to sit up like that, and I don't want that. I want it just like that. So I'll get this whip finished off. Or maybe I'll just do a half hitch. It's usually kind of tricky to whip finish around all that stuff. And I'm going to put some super glue down here anyway. And then I will be ready to put that Marabou down and finish her off. So I'll get some super glue on here. I'll see you up by the head. Alright, up by the head, I really do like these colors, for sure. It's a lot, you might not be able to tell, it's a lot of brown right now, but when I put on these last Marabous, it's going to be all black. So it's going to cover some of that up, and then you can see I'm still going to have plenty of room for this tail, and you can really just see that big white one, which is alright. But on my side, there's a lot of those darker ones, and I just really like these feathers. So my second to last, I hope, it's really thick up here. So I have a couple extra feathers, Marabou feathers, just in case, because when it gets really thick like this up here, you only get a couple good wraps before you run out of real estate, because Marabou feathers aren't necessarily the longest feathers in the world. So I'll get my hackle pliers. Make sure that those are in there. That glue should be dry. Those back. That Marabou just absorbs all this water. And I didn't put any flash down. Not worried about it. So I should get one wrap, get all that back. I don't want to wrap over it, because I'm going to wrap back a little bit and I'm going to put this last one on. I don't want to hit any of those fibers. or cut them all off. And it's wet now, so it's going to be hard to tell. And I'll get just a little bit farther back. Now I'm having to worry about that hair clip, but sometimes tying with these swim jigs can be a little frustrating. So I've got my last feather, and it's a really long one. The fibers are long, and the feather itself is pretty long too, because I'm going to get as many wraps on here as I can, because in my opinion this should be the thickest part of the bait. Just gonna do a couple half hitches, and then I'll just put just a tiny little dab of super glue to hold these half hitches on, because you can try and whip finish by your hand or whatever, but just gotta see where it ended. And I'll just put a tiny bit of super glue right by the head. That should be good. So I'm gonna let this dry a little bit, comb it out, and then we'll see how it turned out. Alright, so mostly dried out. I might end up getting this bait wet to see how thick it ends up getting when it's matted down. But I kind of like, I don't know how well you can see it in the camera, but there's quite a bit of brown right under here. And when it gets wet, I'm hoping that there's just some slivers of this amber that show through the black. And I just really, again, I like these feathers. I think this bait, I just measured it, turned out about 5 3/4. It's heavy, again, it's heavy, but it's gonna sink slower with this Marabou. Obviously it's gonna swim like that. But a little walleye pattern, but Junior's Fishing Company, juniorsfishing.com. See you soon.